everybody, it's Scott Branson with Silver and Black today. Wanted to just make sure that remind you for the latest Raiders news, check out silverandblacktoday.com. But this little special tidbit, this podcast, this audio interview with Coach Jim ONeil, the defensive backs coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, a little special. You heard about 18 minutes of it on the air on Sunday, May 10th. That was Mother's Day. We were not live. We were recorded on Sunday, but that interview was great. He is amazing, great guy to talk to, but we talked even longer. Yes, I went almost 32 minutes with Coach ONeil talking and geeking out on defensive backs and defenses. And so what I wanted to do was bring you the rest of that conversation in this special little podcast. We usually release, or I should say post, the interviews from our radio show in condensed formats. So if you don't have much time, you can just listen to those interviews. Well, here's the interview you heard Sunday, plus bonus material not heard before now. So again, I want to bring you that conversation with Raiders defensive backs coach, Mr. Jim ONeil. Here you go. We hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio. And one of the areas of focus for the Raiders this offseason was bolstering its roster at defensive back. They signed veteran safeties Demarius Randall and Jeff Heath, and in the draft nabbed two really good ones in cornerbacks Damon Arnette from Ohio State and Amik Robertson from Louisiana Tech. And perhaps no one could be happier than the man who joins us now on the phone, the guy who has to coach those defensive backs, Jim ONeil. And Jim joins us now. Welcome to Coach. Welcome to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140, and welcome to Las Vegas.
Thanks, Scott. I'm fired up to be here. Like I told you, we moved here 4 weeks ago, and we love everything about Las Vegas so far. So looking forward to the future here.
Yeah, the city is on fire for the Raiders, and despite what's going on with the bigger issues in the world with the pandemic and all that, as soon as that starts to settle down and we start to return to normal, I know Las Vegans are going to be really excited about football and, of course, Raiders football. Now, Coach, heading into the draft, as the position coach, talk to me about a little bit the input you gave Coach Gruden and Mike Mayock about the needs and the qualities you really wanted in the players should they draft at that position.
Well, we spend more time here with player evaluation than any other organization that I've been with. And with Mike Mayock and John Gruden, you better know all the guys, free agency, and you better know all the guys in the draft, because those guys do such a great job with talent evaluation and just knowing the league and knowing college football. It's amazing the amount of personnel that those guys are able to talk about at a high level and the information that they get on guys. So as a position coach, you got to be on top of it. The way we pretty much structure it is once the season's over, January, February, and March is totally dedicated to player evaluation, whether it's free agents or it's draft players. And then you really start to get into your scheme eval and football stuff starting April 1st. But I would say just for me, the overall evaluation, it's usually 4 to 5 hours of tape on the guy from college. You know, you try to get to know the guy at the combine. I like to be down on the field so I could see how these guys interact with each other, who's kind of the lead dog, who shies away. You evaluate all the all-star stuff, especially if it's a smaller school guy. So you can, so you get a feel for how he's playing against better competition. We're big on the character eval, so we're constantly calling position coaches and coordinators and people that you know that might have coached the kid. And then we get on the Zoom meetings, which was a little bit unique this year. And you know, you install some defense and you see if they can regurgitate it back to you. And then you got to write a lengthy report, which I think all football coaches hate. They'd rather just speak off the cuff. But, you know, there's a lot that goes into it, you know, the evaluation process. But, you know, before all that, you know, for us, it's special to be a DB for the Raiders. You know, if you look at the history, just at corner with guys like Charles Woodson and Nnamdi Asomugha, Willie Brown, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes, just to name a few, or you go to safety and Jack Tatum and George Atkinson, Van McElroy, and Rod Woodson and Ronnie Lott at the end of their careers. So to me, it's really special to be a DB for the Raiders, and it's big shoes to fill. And I tell the guys, everybody that we decide to join that room, that it's different. It's different than being a DB anywhere else in the NFL. I mean, you're a Raider. It means something different to be a Raider DB. And And the biggest compliment that we could give a guy is that he has Raider traits.
Yeah.
And we could get into that if you want. But,
yeah.
If we start an evaluation off and a guy has Raider traits, Mike Mayock and John Gruden are going to perk up in their chairs. Those are the guys we're looking for.
Yeah, and you've been I was going to say, Coach, you guys have been very consistent in saying that, and I think that sometimes for those of us who cover the team gets lost on us because the two kids that you drafted, Damon Arnette and Amik Robertson. Now, Amik Robertson was one of my favorites, honestly, and so I knew a lot about him. Damon Arnette, I think for me, to be frank and to be honest, when you drafted him, it was a surprise for me. And that probably was because I was focused on Jeff Okudah, like everybody else, and I didn't see him, and I didn't really pay as much attention to them. But both those guys seem to have those traits you're talking about.
Yeah, and when we talk about those traits, I think it's we're looking for guys that love football, not what football brings to them. If they had to play a doubleheader, they would love it. They're not worried about the money. They're playing the game because they love to practice, they love to meet, they love to play. I think that's where it starts and ends. We want guys that are ultra competitive. And I think when you look at a guy like Damon Arnette, if you put him in a room with 15 other corners, and he's the one coming out of that room. If there's one man walking out of that room, if you say, hey, you guys are all in it for yourself, somebody's got to leave this room alive, he's the guy walking out. He's just got that dog, that toughness, that competitiveness that you love. And that's what kept bringing us back to him. You're looking for guys with a swagger, guys that are tough mentally and physically. They're going to play through injury. Guys that are great teammates. And to me, you can always tell that when you watch tape, when guys make plays, are the other 10 guys running over to celebrate with. I mean, that's how you know guys are great teammates. And then the last thing we look for, and it's a really big thing that we're going to emphasize, especially on defense, is we look for guys that are going to race to the football with violent intentions. And we don't want a coach effort. We want guys that want to get to the ball. And to me, the guys that we picked up in free agency and the guys that we got in the draft possess those traits. And I'm in a great situation right now because everybody that's in my room right now, I had a chance to go to bat for, and I had a chance to pick them.
Yeah.
So I didn't inherit anybody in that room anymore. So this is the first time in my third year now going into it with the Raiders where I can say I've been a part of handpicking everybody in this group.
Well, and that's Coach. That's what I like about the team overall too. Is on offense and defense is sort of yes. There's still some few players that were there when Coach Gruden came in and Mike Mayock came in, but overall it's mostly to where you're at, which is hey, these are guys we brought in. They fit our mold. They fit the culture we want to build within the Raider organization as it is today. And that is a little bit of a throwback, of course, with modern thinking and what you guys are doing there. But I'll tell you, we talked to Amik Robertson and Amik said, I want to be legendary. And that was not boastful. See, you could read that statement and say, hey, this is a kid who's got, who's just got an ego. No, he wants to work hard. He has a lot to prove. He feels like his stature was held against him and all that kind of stuff. Those type of guys too, Coach. And, we talked to Lynn Bowden earlier in this show. Same thing on his side. Like people say, well, he can't be this and he can't be that. And for those guys, like Amik and Damon Arnette, those are the intangibles that you can't really always see on tape. That's the kind of thing you're talking about when you talk to kids at the combine and such, right?
No, absolutely. And you're looking for guys that have that chip on his shoulder. I mean, Amik Robertson's been the best football player on the field probably since he's been in Pee Wee or Pop Warner football at age 5.
Wow.
And everybody's told him his whole life that he he can't play at LSU because you're not tall enough. You're not going to be a first, second, or third round pick because you're not tall enough. And he's got an unbelievable chip on his shoulder. And to go with that, he's one of the most instinctual football players I think I've ever evaluated.
Wow.
He's got unbelievable ball skills, and he's an ultra competitor. So, I mean, you put all that together, and you're excited about the guy. And then the one thing that I spend a lot of time on, Scott, is a lot of guys just look at height when it comes to corners. We're really big on length. So what is their wingspan with their height? So for me, Amik Robertson's a +5. So his wingspan is 5 inches longer than how tall he is. So really, he's like a 5'10 and a half, 5'11 corner.
Yeah, and he's a ball hawk too, man. He just finds the ball.
He is, and you like, to me, at that position, especially at nickel, you need to have length to be competitive at the reception point. Yeah. Because you're going to be on the back hip of some of these receivers.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, no, I love the draft class. Again, we're speaking to Raiders defensive back coach Jim ONeil. And Jim, you look at the existing roster now. We talked a little bit about the young guys, and not including those rookies. You've added veterans like Demarius Randall, like Jeff Heath, and then you have guys returning. Jonathan Abram, who's kind of like a rookie because of the injury in one game. Then you have Lamarcus Joyner, Trayvon Mullen, just to name a few. Do you feel roster rich at this point now that you have so many different guys who are good in different areas and you can move around?
No, I think we're talented. I don't think we're roster rich. I think that in today's NFL, you got to be willing to spend money, and to invest high draft picks in the secondary. I mean, and we all know it. We got to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. So to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you need guys that can rush and cover. So we've invested some money and we've invested some draft picks and guys that can cover. And the talent is there. The potential is there. We haven't proven it yet. And as a group, we need to prove it together. So until that happens, I'm not going to say we're roster rich, because we're going to keep adding guys to each position group to create a competitive situation until guys establish themselves.
Yeah, and I love that approach, and I think Coach Gruden's always had that mindset, which is it doesn't matter if you have a starter and he's a starter. I mean, even look at a quarterback this year. You have Derek Carr, but you bring in Marcus Mariota, not to replace Derek Carr, but it's always good to have. I don't care what job you're in. I don't care if you're the best plumber in the world, you're the best teacher in the world. If there's someone there to challenge you, you always get better, and I love that approach that you guys are doing on this roster. Now, I have to ask you one question that we get from our listeners and our readers all the time, and that is about Lamarcus Joyner. A lot of folks, a lot of the Twitter GMs and Twitter coaches out there, they feel like Lamarcus should move in out of the safety position back to slot corner. Is he going to be at safety? Or are you guys in the position now where you're going to say, hey, look, we're going to put guys in different spots, see where they gel, see where this roster comes together, and then make a decision?
Well, no, Lamarcus Joyner, when we went out and got Lamarcus Joyner in free agency, we thought he was a difference maker at the nickel position. So for us, he's a nickel first, and then this year we are also training him to play some safety. So got it. But I mean, our nickels on the field 80% or more of the snaps, and it's probably the hardest position to play on the field, because when you play as much man or match zone coverage as we do, receivers have three-way goes on you. And we ask our nickel to get involved in the run fit. Mm-hmm. So it's as hard of a position as we have on our defense. It takes somebody that's really, really football smart, and it takes an unbelievable amount of athleticism, because in critical downs, that's where the ball's going. So that's like playing third base in Major League Baseball. That's the hot corner.
It's a good analogy. Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, that a lot of fans, and God bless them, it's not everybody gets into the X's and O's of football, but in your system and how you run that system, positions sometimes have different meanings depending on what you're doing. And you're talking about the nickel and the importance in your system of the nickel. It makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the young guys too that we talk a lot about here on the show, because we thought towards the end of the year really came on strong, was of course Trayvon Mullen. What does Trayvon need to do going into this preseason, this camp, when you guys finally get these guys on the field? What does he need to do to make that next step that you want to see him take in year two?
I think a lot of it's going to be mental, and just with the almost 2 weeks now of Zoom meetings, I think he has the confidence now. He's done it. He's had success against some big-time receivers, established receivers in this league. He was a guy that was at the top of our board last year, and we couldn't believe we got him where we got him. And we knew probably about halfway through training camp last year that we were going to have something special. And that's the reason that we ended up trading away Garyon Conley, just because we knew we had something there in Trayvon Mullen. But I think now it's a lot of split recognition. What does this release mean? What's my game plan in press? How should I attack this guy? I think a lot of it now is more the mental stuff. He got his hands on a lot of balls last year as PBUs. I think just that extra split second, whether it's gathering pre-snap information or taking what he's learned from film or in the meeting room and applying it to the field, that's going to mean interceptions, or completions are now going to be PBUs for him. Just he needs to find a way to get a half step quicker mentally because he has it all physically.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because you can't change the physical necessarily, but you can work in the classroom and work with the player mentally. So that's a great sign. Now, before we let you go, Coach, when you look at all the new pieces you got, coupled with what you had on the roster already that you're very happy with and that you continue to develop, what's going to be the biggest challenge to get that room cohesive? Now, you already established a culture. You've been there a few years. You got the veterans there to kind of lead the younger guys along. But what's going to be the biggest challenge to get that group to gel together as you head into the season?
Yeah, well, like you said, we got John Abram in the room, who nobody really talks about anymore, but he's our follow me or else alpha dog. So he really sets the culture for our room. And that's why we drafted him. And I love everything about the guy. I do. I think he's going to have a big time year. I think that the biggest thing for these guys right now is just creating a chemistry. I mean, you can buy a bunch of really good DBs or great DBs. It's been done in this league, and they've played awful football. These guys got to gel together. It's the nonverbal and the verbal communication that has to come along. They got to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they got to learn how to play together.
Yeah.
And right now in our meeting rooms, the challenge for me is how can I talk less and get these guys talking more to each other virtually. I do think we got some special things going on in the room. The first 10 minutes they bust each other's balls or they play Madden with each other, and they're doing a lot of stuff. Like right now. Demarius Randall and John Abram VRBO'd or they call it Airbnb to house out here in Vegas, and they're living together for a month. So
I love it.
There's a lot of cool stuff going on within the group. We got a bunch of guys, before all this stuff hit that were working out together down in Dallas. It's a close group. It's just we got to make them football close, and we're going to lose. We're probably going to lose, anywhere between 400 and 500 reps. If this thing doesn't get started back up with this offseason.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a challenge this training camp, but we're not going to use that as an excuse.
No, and
Damon Arnette drafted with the expectation that he was going to compete for a starting job. Nobody's going to want to hear about that he didn't have an offseason.
Right.
Week one, whoever we're going against, if he's out there, he's going to be expected to perform. It's the same thing with Isaiah Johnson in year 2 and Keyshawn Nixon in year 2. And they're going to expect Demarius Randall to know the defense and Jeff Heath to know the defense. So, and then you got guys like Eric Harris, who's a vet who will stay on a Zoom call or call a guy after the Zoom call and just explain it to him like a player. And those guys are so valuable because it means so much to them. It's not about me. It's about the group, and it's about you understanding it because I know you can help us win football games.
Yeah, and Coach ONeil, I love what you're doing there, and I think you're putting that group together, the right personalities, the right amount of talent, and it's always a work in progress. I know that, but coupled with the help you've gotten at linebacker and up front, which helps you guys out back there too, I think it's going to be a pretty special year for you guys, a big year of growth and a huge step forward. And Jim ONeil, we appreciate you being with us, and we'll talk to you again real soon and hope to see you real soon.
Oh, I appreciate it, Scott. I enjoyed it. And like I said, man, if you want to go 5 more minutes, we can. My wife's doing 5th grade math right now, so I'm trying to avoid that.
No, I appreciate that. Well,
I appreciate it.
I'll ask you a couple other questions too that I can use as well, which is you would talk about the defensive improvement in front of you, right? So when you look at what the team did and what Mike and John did going out and getting a Corey Littleton, Kwiatkowski, all these guys because the linebacker position, let's face it, was tough. I mean, you tried a bunch of different pieces and they didn't all work out. Wasn't for lack of effort or heart or anything like that. It's just you needed to upgrade, and you did that. You spent the money to do that, and then you continue to get better on the front line as well. Talk about the impact of the rest of the defensive improvements on your group.
No, I think it's been awesome what we did at the linebacker position, and I think Dave Lippincott, our linebacker coach, does a great job with those guys. But like you said, at times last year, we were a little talent deficient. We went out and we got two big-time playmakers. You know, I watch a ton of film on Corey Littleton, and I see some of the stuff he does coverage-wise, and I'm, like, excited to get him in some of my meetings so he can learn some of the stuff, and maybe we can work with him like he's a DB or like he's a strong safety.
Yeah.
And just, you know, I got a lot of good friends on the Chicago Bears staff, and they can't say enough good things about Nick Kwiatkowski and his leadership ability and how he's going to run the defense and how good he is at communicating pre-snap. And to me, guys like that make everybody around him better. And that's stuff that doesn't show up in the stats are guys like that. And then when you just look at the D-line, what the guys we've added and then the guys that are coming into their second year, you know, the better the pass rush is, the better we are in the back end. So yep. I'm fired up. I am fired up this year about our defense.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, you talk about Corey Littleton. He's a sideline to sideline guy, right? In today's NFL, you have to have it. It's not, you know, as much as I loved growing up in the 70s and 80s and watching old school linebackers go at it, it's a different position today. And the fact that you're going to have a guy, like you said, who can drop back and cover is going to help you guys out significantly. And I love what's going on with that. Now, when you look at, you guys are going to be moving into your new home here pretty soon. It's going to be done hopefully in June, and once they start letting you back in the building. When you look at that, talk about the impact of this new training facility, the ability to do so many things, to have you guys help design it, right? How is that going to also impact what you're able to do with your defensive backs? Well, I think
the facility is unbelievable, and just that in itself. I mean, we're coming from facilities that weren't close to what the facilities we're moving into. So, I mean, just from a performance enhancement, you know, food, strength and conditioning, the training room, all that's going to help the guys. The thing I'm excited about is when you have great facilities, the guys tend to stay around in the off season. And to me, that gives you an edge over other teams. So if guys make Las Vegas their home, which it sounds like a lot of guys are going to do, they're getting seen year-round by your training staff. They're doing rehab year-round from your athletic trainers. You know, they're eating breakfast and lunch in the facility every single day. So to me, that's just a competitive advantage that you have over the rest of the NFL that nobody thinks about. But to me, it's awesome. You know, I can have a conversation with a guy down in the hallway instead of having to call him on the phone. But the facilities are going to be awesome. I can't wait to open up that new stadium. You know, I got you know, where I used to live in San Jose, I was friends with a couple of the guys that played for the Sharks, and I know that that's like a curse word around here with the Vegas Knights.
It is.
But those guys would tell me that they didn't know what loud was until they played in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
When it came to hockey arenas, they said that it was deafening. And if that's the way it is for a hockey game, I can't imagine what it's going to be like for an NFL football game, especially an NFL football game on Monday night.
Inside a dome, it's going to be, and that's the other thing too, Coach. We talked to your kickers, and they all love that they're going to be in a dome. When they were out visiting, when they made the official name switch to Las Vegas Raiders, we talked to them, and when you look at this and you start coaching your guys, you don't have the elements, right? You don't have not that Las Vegas has a ton of weather, but we do get high winds, it gets hot, and all that kind of stuff. And you've played in San Francisco, coached in San Francisco, even in Santa Clara, where you can sometimes get some weather. Here, you're not going to have that. So with your guys indoors now, your practice facility, you're going to have an indoors practice facility as well as the outdoor fields. How does that change anything that you prepare when you look at doing home games?
Well, to me, I want the elements. I want wind. I want rain. I want snow. I want sleet. I want all of it. I want a wet football that gets in that quarterback's mind. I don't like perfect elements, you know, but we're going to have to deal with it. We're going to practice in it. That's okay. That's why we got the guys that we went out and got. But no, I think that Coach will do a great job. He always does. With if we're playing on grass, we're going to practice on grass. If we're playing inside, I'm sure we'll practice inside. If we're playing outside, we're going to practice outside. So he does a great job with all that stuff as far as the week leading up to the game. So that's kind of his department. And like I said, he usually knocks it out of the park with that stuff.
Well, and without getting you in trouble or fined or anything like that, the rules. Let's talk about the rules now. Of course, last year you were able to challenge, mostly unsuccessfully, no matter what team you were on, the pass interference rule and whatnot. It looks like they're going to be changing that back. I know we're waiting on the NFL owners meeting here,
right.
But
right.
The way the league, I mean, you've been in the league long enough, you've seen it change. It really benefits the offense right now. Defensive backs, you talked about all those great Raider defensive backs like Lester Hayes, those guys could bump and run. There's a lot of other things that could be done. There was a lot more physical contact. Now they've taken that away from you. How has that changed the way you teach the game, especially to these younger players coming in out of college?
Well, you got to get your work done within the first 5 yards, and we want to be a press team. You know, we are buying and we are drafting press corners. So we are looking for guys with length that can run, that have a demeanor where they want to get up in your face and they want to put their hands on you. To me, with the rules right now, I understand all the rules, and it's just the consistency of them is what makes it hard on the players from week in and week out. You know, and I think that's where we all need to do a better job to make the game better. But for us, you know, it's just teaching guys. You know, we put guys in boxing gloves almost all the time in training camp and practice. That way they can't grab.
Right.
You know, during passing periods. You know, and then it's overcoaching the hell out of getting your eyes around and looking for the football and not grabbing at what we call level 2, those 8 to 15 yard throws. Okay, or grabbing downfield. A lot of times when guys foul, it's a lack of confidence or it's poor eye discipline. So if we do a good job getting the right players that are very confident, and we do a good job coaching eye discipline, then that should help us with the penalties.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I talked to Mike Haynes about it, he was a little more colorful about it to say, hey, listen, you man, if I was playing again, I would go back to wide receiver because I can get away with so much more doing that. But it's interesting. You're right about the consistency, and I think that even for fans when they watch the game, let's face it. Despite all of the things that have been done to improve the safety in the game, which of course, as we know, is the right thing to do for players and everybody involved, the reality is though fans want the physicality of football. That's what they love about the game of football. And that relationship and that matchup between defensive back and wide receiver or tight end has always been something that people love watching the game within the game. Yep. And I think when you're not consistent with the way you call it, that frustrates fans too. So I know coaches, fans, players, everybody gets frustrated by it. But at least it's a point of emphasis now. Hopefully they do the right thing and pay a little more attention to it.
Well, you know, we're the Las Vegas Raiders. We're still going to make the middle of the field a scary place for offenses. And we overcoach, you know, lowering your aiming point, but we're not going to shy away from contact. And the players know that and the coaches know that. That's how the game has to be played. That's how it was meant to be played. So we just got to do, you know, and we go through a lot more drills than what we used to have to do 5, 6, 7 years ago to train guys how to lower their aiming point, but still have good, clean contact, okay, out on the red line where wide receivers want to come into the middle of the field.
Yeah. Well, and you have, I mean, you talked about Jonathan Abram, right? Who, the night he was drafted, we were doing a live draft show. And that was the one thing I brought up was it was such a great player. At the same time, his instincts are so physical and so aggressive that you're going to have to be careful because at the NFL level, they'll call a lot of that. So how do you find that happy medium when you're instructing a player on the practice field and you say, hey, listen, we want you to be physical. We want you to lay the wood when you need to, but at the same time, knowing when to do it and when not to do it. How difficult is that to coach into these young guys?
Well, I think some of it is knowing when to take your shot and when not to take your shot. You just have to know that now. It's easier to say than to do because sometimes that stuff happens, you know, within a split second.
Right.
John Abram's going to draw a couple penalties. That's the kind of player he is. We're not coaching him to commit penalties. We're coaching him to play clean football. But he's a big hitter. He's an alpha dog that's going to make the middle of the field a scary place. It's why we drafted him. Okay, so John's got to do a good job just understanding when to take his shots, when not to take his shots, and he's got to work hard at lowering his aiming point so he can make clean contact. And if he can't make clean contact, then he's just going to have to execute a less destructive tackle, and just get the guy on the ground.
Yeah. Well, and Robertson and Arnette have those same sort of traits. Maybe not in the same way of Jonathan, but certainly they are aggressive guys who like to hit as well. So it's good that he's there. He's been through it once, right? And unfortunately got injured. But that group, I think, is going to just gel together because, to me, from an outside perspective, covering the team, and you know these guys because you're living with them all the time, it just seems as though the personality melt, that chemistry, while you can't prescribe it per se, it certainly feels like the way you've done your player evaluation, including the personality traits and all that, that these guys were sort of made to be together.
I hope so, and that's kind of my thinking. I can't wait to meet with these guys every day. I have so much fun with them, and I just can't wait to get on the grass with them. I got two great coaches on, that help me out. Tabor Johnson and Duke, and they do a good job with these guys as well. And it's a high energy group. And I sent a tweet out, I think last week, and I just, when we got done the virtual meetings, it's like I can feel their energy through the computer screen. They ask such good questions and they're so into it. And I mean, we're meeting on Zoom, which, these guys are football players. They're not students, but they're doing everything they can to learn the scheme and come together. And it's been a lot of fun, this 2 weeks of virtual meetings. It hasn't been as much fun as being on the grass, but the situation is what it is. And we're trying to get a competitive edge over everybody else in the NFL.
Well, it's certainly going to be fun to watch, and I know that this year a lot of people, have maligned the Raiders in the past for having kind of a revolving door at defensive back. But it's the plan that you guys have. You can see it being executed. I think even for fans now who maybe last year or the year before were sort of like, what are they doing? Now they can see what you were doing, right? As the plan progresses, as you start to add more pieces. And I know that this first year in Las Vegas, despite this kind of strange start that we're going to have to it, certainly is going to get people excited, and your unit's going to be part of that. So we appreciate, Jim, you spending the time with us today, man.
Thanks, Scott, man. I enjoyed it. So
yeah, and I'll
stay safe.
Yep.
Stay safe and stay positive, man.
That's what you got to do, man. No need for negativity in the world. There's enough out there. So that's what I always say. I say, you know what? If it's not my drama, it's not my issue. So I'm going to stay away from it.
There you go.
But I appreciate that. I look forward to meeting you out on the field here when we can get back to person stuff.
Sounds good.
All right, my friend. You take care. Thanks again for the time.
All right.